Good morning and welcome to the test garden. We are almost at the end of the school year, so I wanted to do some recommendations for you if no one is going to be tending your garden this summer. First recommendation is that you do something. So what we really don't want to see is just leaving your garden as it is, because then what's going to happen is that you're just going to welcome a lot of weed seeds into your bed, and when you get back you're going to have a real weedy mess. So we really recommend that you put your garden to bed. This is the opposite of what happens in Chicago in gardens and farms, because we're trying to not grow something rather than trying to grow something. But there's two different methods that you can do. So the first one I'll go over is chop and drop, and then the second one is just clearing your bed and covering it. So this is a garden bed that we did a couple experiments with over the winter. So in the fall we planted a peas and oats cover crop, and then we let that grow. It died in the winter, and then we kind of incorporated that, chopped it up and incorporated it into the soil, and then smoothed this out. So this is a really cool thing to see because we did a stale seed bed, which means we just spread everything, or we smoothed everything out and let any weed seeds germinate. And then the idea is then you come back and you remove all of that. So last week I came when we didn't do any filming, and this side I had all kinds of plants, and I just came and just removed them, and they were much smaller than what you see over here. And so that I just left on the soil surface. They've already kind of withered up. They were small and they're gone. So that has removed at least some of that early spring growth. So you can see over here where I did not disturb. What you mostly see is something called henbit. This is a very common early spring weed, and if you look very closely, you might be able to see that they're starting to get purple flowers. And you'll notice that in the environment if you look around, because it's really common here in Chicago. None of this is flowering yet, so there are no seeds here. So this is a really good thing to think about using for chop and drop. This is in the mint family, but it doesn't seem to really root and grow the same way that mint grows. So I'm going to experiment with doing this as a chop and drop. So I'm going to go through right now and just remove these and then leave them on the soil surface. Okay, so this was sort of chop and drop. I really did uproot it just for time, but you can chop at the soil surface and lay it. Probably with a henbit, it's best just to uproot everything, but I'm gonna leave it there. And then I have some leaves that are left over from the fall season, so I'm gonna add that. And then after that, we're gonna cover it. So this bed will be kind of like a hybrid. So ideally we can do, it's like greens and browns, right? So that's with weeds. You can also do that with whatever spring crops you haven't used. So like you see here, we have mustard greens. Those could be chopped and dropped. Like any of your spinach that's going to flower can be chopped and dropped just on the soil surface. Your second option is so in this area, this is mostly just cleared of weeds. Right? If you had anything that was flowering, so there's seeds in it, those you just really want to remove so that those seeds don't sit in the soil. So after that, what you need to do is cover. You've got a couple options of how you cover your soil. So one is if you have historically had tons of weeds in your soil, we recommend you covering it either with black plastic or with clear plastic. either one is fine because you're going to be doing this over the entire summer. So that's going to both prevent seeds from falling into your garden, but it's also going to like really heat up under there and cook anything that you have growing. So like a good watering first, or wait till it rains and then put that down. So you can either, for this, you can use like a contractor bag, or if you do clear plastic, and I just reuse these year after year, you can use just like a 5 mil or 10 mil plastic that comes in a roll. And then for aesthetic purposes, I think it's better if you can cover that with burlap, if at all possible. So the other option that you can do is just a weed barrier. And a weed barrier you can buy in a garden center. This one is supposed to like be able to suppress weeds for about 10 years. So there are a lot of different varieties of these, and you could again reuse this every summer if this is the route you want to go. So what you need, and these curvy beds are not ideal because they're curvy, and this is a rectangle. So I just wanted to go through kind of a little bit of how I do this. But landscape staples are, they can be called sod staples. You can buy those at a garden center as well. So you just want to really tuck this in to cover as much of the soil surface as possible. And those just poke down into the ground. Sometimes if your soil's really loose, we kind of do this in a, we do 2 of them in a cross. And then you go through and just anchor these to cover as much of that soil surface as you possibly can. And then I have chives in the corner here, so I'm just gonna let those poke out. Okay, so then I can come back and just make sure in a couple days that everything is staying down. And then, right, the preference to really make it look nice and tucked in is you can get just a roll of burlap or some burlap sacks and put it down so that it really looks a little bit more aesthetically pleasing for the neighbors that come by. So great option for if you are going to be vacationing this summer, and just being able to kind of close things out at school and come back and then remove this carefully and have a clearer bed so that you can plant your fall garden. Thanks for coming out today.